That's why I sometimes make a joke that, candles help you lose weight, just to kind of snap people out of it, because firelight is the only natural source of light other than the sun that gives you the vital infrared part of the spectrum. So to bring that candlelight back into your space at night, I created these rituals of reverence when I was going through cancer treatment. I really wanted to honor the divinity in me and to create that simple experience. And so I lit those candles. And I started lighting candles at night and turning off the light. For example, when you wake up in the morning and people look at their screen of their phone as the first form of light that they see before they even open their drapes, before they even get out of bed, that's messed up, because you're giving your body that blue light, and that's not the right light, because the spectrum of sunlight that happens at sunrise is a very different spectrum, and you need that.
So good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining the Sacred Path podcast. And this is your host, Angell Deer. And today I have the pleasure to be with Mahwish Syed. Mahwish, how are you today?
I am lovely. Thanks, Angel. I'm excited to talk with you.
So when I got the information about Mahwish, I was like, okay, she's doing interior design. How is this connecting to the work that we do here? And then I started reading more about her, and I started to see that she's working with spirituality, biology, beauty as a mean to create space that are healing. And I love one of your quote that you use in your book and that you use in your bio, which is healing through beauty. And I find that really interesting. So, I want to dive in this now. So tell me a little bit about you first, and then talk to me a little bit about healing with beauty, and what do you mean by that?
Thanks, Angel. I have been creating and healing with beauty my entire life, except I didn't ever realize I was defining it that way until very recently. I have been a fashion and interior designer, and my background is also in textile conservation. I worked at the Metropolitan Museum of Art on beautiful Egyptian linen and 17th century Italian chasuble. So I was really hands-on physically with beauty and with the history of our, the legacy that we've left behind throughout the ages. So this idea of us being divine beings and having this strong connection to our origin, our roots, is really a huge part of my design work anyway. But it really became much more amplified after I went through my cancer journey. And what that did was, like the story of the goddess Persephone, goddess of the seasons, she's abducted and taken down into the underworld. And there she eats her seeds of wisdom, which were the pomegranate seeds. So there's a lot of symbolism here we can unpack. So in doing so, I realized that beauty is indeed healing. And what I mean by that is not, what's been hijacked by the cosmetics industry as what's on the surface of things, but something that is on a soul level, on a cellular level. To quote Bruce Lipton, the divine intelligence of our cells, all of these ways, science, quantum biology, these are all different languages to describe what I feel is really the same thing, which is that wonderful access point that we are, our beingness, and the interaction that we have with our environment, which is a living creature, it's a living ecosystem. And that language that we speak with our environment is something that is truly transformational. And beauty is just one of those modalities that I use.
Beautiful. It's interesting because I'm feeling, and maybe, you want to tell me what you think about that, but the loss of wild, beautiful space. Before we get into the interior space, let's go on the exterior space, right? The nature and the degradation of nature. And we know it creates sickness because of pollutions and things like that. But do you feel there's also a correlation also in, seeing landscape that maybe are not as beautiful as they used to be? The
I
loss of
completely
biodiversity, the loss of bees, the loss of birds. I mean, there is a very different experience today in forest, wild forest, even than 100 years ago because of those losses. And have you thought about, and how does that weigh with your work, this loss of this beauty externally in the wild world, how that impact our health, and how that is, yeah, directly something that maybe we can tend to as rewilding white spaces, but also bring that into our interior spaces.
You're speaking my language, Angel. I am a biophilia expert. So for me, designing a beautiful space and having a beautiful experience means being aligned with nature. And one thing I want to say, and this is where the ancient wisdom comes in, 90, if you look at our human existence as a 24-hour clock, only in the last 30 seconds of our existence have we had electricity, have we had the separation from nature. And for the other 23 plus hours, we lived 90% of our time outside. Okay. And with the seasons, and this is why I use the analogy of Persephone, because we have become divorced from the seasons and from the cycles of daylight and nighttime and all those natural rhythms, which basically has spawned all sorts of diseases, the modern chronic diseases. And it's from being divorced from that nature. So on that level, we need to go back to it. So designing spaces that are aligned with your circadian rhythm, with your ancient being, is something that I love sinking my design teeth into and figuring out. And frankly, it's not even about a multi-million-dollar renovation to redo everything. You don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. What I love is what I call creative constraints, coming up with actionable ways in which you can transform how you experience your space and your health right here, right now. So my book, which is called Purgatory to Paradise, I was living in a state of purgatory because I feel like we're always in the state of waiting to live, of waiting to feel beautiful until we heal. And I think we need to really feel beautiful now so that we can heal. And that means connecting to our nature and to connect to what we call, what you said, the wild nature, and how much we've affected our planet. I would like to put a positive spin on this and say that we are divine stewards, and it is our birthright to protect and sustain that biodiversity, to sustain that wild ecosystem, and bringing that into and understanding what it is, and then bringing that into, like I like to say, your living room is your sacred sanctuary and your coffee table is your altar. So if indeed you want to bring nature in just as a focal point, as a talisman, to bring something wild from outside, even if it's your backyard, to bring that and connect yourself to what's happening outside as much as possible, even just as a meditation, is an important one to practice.
Mm. Yeah, I like the way you're looking at it. Do you think basically also the materials we've been using? I mean, we're using concrete mainly to build our house today, right? I just come back from Peru. I was there for, 3 weeks. I've been going to Peru for more than 10 years now. And in Peru, houses, at least in the local communities and in the mountain, are still built from the soil. You carve out the soil, you make those bricks and you dry them in the sun, and then you build house from there. It's completely natural material. And I always felt like the vibration, the feeling in houses, beyond even the aesthetic, just the presence of a living material to build the houses, has a huge impact on how I'm sleeping and how I'm feeling. So how do we do that when we live in cities that are, metal and concrete, right? Where nature has been pushed so far off.
Mhm.
Uh, how do we, reconnect to that? I mean, obviously, I think, yeah, we can put plants in our living room, we can put nice material, but what's your approach when, for everybody that's listening here, how do we do that when maybe we don't have the capacity to redo our whole house? We don't have the capacity maybe to build in natural material, and we have to start, from whatever the house looks like. And how we do it in a way that is connected to the different methodology that you mentioned, the biology, there's, our natural rhythm and all of that. What are some key components, or how do you look at it? And you're like, okay, this is elements that we need to bring in there.
Thank you. Number one, my mind goes to your circadian health, lighting, natural light, to incorporate as much natural light as possible into your space. And a lot of people, I feel, are living in, indoor air, Angel, is far more polluted than outdoor air.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And most people don't realize that the number one source of indoor air pollution is your flooring. It's your wall-to-wall carpeting, your area rugs, and any kind of composite wood that people are using. So thinking about your space from a pragmatic standpoint of opening that window to create that air circulation, not only for the air circulation, but since sunlight isn't polarized, and most windows in the modern world are laminated to block certain spectrum of UV light for saving energy. However, what sometimes people have manipulated is they say it's environmentally friendly, but it's actually not good for our bodies. So I really want to make that distinction that sometimes it can be environmentally friendly or saving you, or trying to quantify on it from a carbon footprint, for that example. But by just opening your window, you're able to, I like to consider myself like a vampire hunter, bring the light in and reflect it throughout the space using mirrors, using gloss paint to reflect that light into spaces that otherwise would be, especially living in the city, light is a commodity. I mean, what exposure windows you have, all of those things. So just by opening your window, you're getting a better air quality, and you're getting that sunlight. Even when you're driving in your car, if you open your window, because car windows are laminated, they're tinted. So opening just a couple of inches and letting the sunlight bounce into your car, you're giving your body the vital signal that starts a very complex cascade of hormones and endocrine cascade that allows you to function. You can eat as great as you want, you can exercise, but if you're not getting the right light at the right time, you're actually causing yourself many health problems.
Mm. So light is a big one. What are the other elements that you look at? I know people like, oh, we need to put plants to remove the pollution indoor, right? Some plants can filter that.
Right.
But there are some things, I never thought about opening windows. I mean, I know what you mentioned about the UV and that we need exposure to UV to be healthy. But are other elements that are, you think, really key that maybe people are not always thinking about?
Oh, I have another one. This is the nighttime Persephone, the underworld that we are in. Our nighttime mode, Angel, has been so um, diluted from what it should be. Having total darkness in your bedroom when you're sleeping is really important too. Um, Also, at night, I recommend that you turn off any overhead ceiling lights. Do not use your overhead ceiling lights. So think about, the sun at high noon. Your body actually has photoreceptors, not just in your eyes, but all over your skin. So you have the ability to sense the time of day based on where the sun is in the sky. Our biology is thousands of years old. It's ancient, and we are still married to the sun. We're still married to the seasons. So if you have that overhead light on at 9 o'clock at night, you're giving your body the wrong signal that it's a certain time of day. You will not be able to come into your rest and relaxation state. That's why I sometimes make a joke that, candles help you lose weight, just to kind of snap people out of it, because it's like, how? Because firelight is the only natural source of light other than the sun that gives you the vital infrared part of the spectrum. So to bring that candlelight back into your space at night, I created these rituals of reverence when I was going through cancer treatment. So even if I wasn't able to eat my mom's fabulous spicy Pakistani dishes that she was cooking for me when I was going through chemo. I spread rose petals on my table. I lit a candle. I brought out my best china, my best dishes, my best silverware, cloth napkins, and I created this ceremony of just even a simple sliced banana, Angel, with maybe picking pansies from my garden to garnish the plate, to create this beautiful experience. Because when you're settling into that beauty, right? Even when I had, my hair was falling out, I had no eyebrows, my face was swollen from steroids. I really wanted to honor the divinity in me and to create that simple experience. And so I lit those candles and I started lighting candles at night and turning off the light. And when I started doing all this research and when I got my certification in applied quantum biology, I'm like, oh my God, of course, all of this makes sense. So I was doing these things very much instinctively, and then realized that there were studies backing this up. There are studies and studies and studies showing that the wrong light at the wrong time is linked to breast cancer and other cancers. So it's not just, for example, when you wake up in the morning and people look at their screen of their phone as the first form of light that they see before they even open their drapes, before they even get out of bed. That's messed up because you're giving your body that blue light, and that's not the right light because the spectrum of sunlight that happens at sunrise is a very different spectrum, and you need that. So I recommend my clients before, as you wake up, first of all, that phone should never be in your bedroom, but it should be somewhere behind it, and so to go outside and open the window if you can't go outside, but to look at the brightest point of the sky, which gives you the information that your body needs, your ancient biology needs, right?
Mm.
So no matter where you live, you can do that.
Mm.
You can do that. Just as much as, like, say if you're in an office space, instead of having your back to the window, face the window. It's
Mm.
just as simple as just your change of where you position your body, and the position of that light at night to your body matters. So turning on standing lamps, turning on table lamps, sconces, think about like where the sun is at 6 o'clock and mimic that light spectrum in your home at 6 o'clock.
Mm.
So wherever that sun is on the horizon, think about that zone for your space as well. And yes, create, I think of like your most, when you go for celebrating your anniversary, you go to that romantic restaurant. Is it like institutional, like brightly lit with overhead, lighting? It's usually a romantic, dimly lit, candlelit restaurant. Think of creating that space for yourself and that ritual for yourself at night.
Mm. Speaking of light, there has been a lot of debate around incandescent lighting and LED lighting. People saying that LED lighting is very far off from, the natural light. And incandescent lighting is closer to it. And now it's impossible not to get LED lighting, right? And pretty much, I think the other one have been phased out. But do you see also an impact that we have not only, cut ourselves from those natural rhythm, that we live in very bright space. We keep the light on until 9 or 10 p.m., especially now it's the winter, right? At 5 p.m. outside, my chickens they're in bed, right? That's the night is there. But you feel also, when we talk about artificial lighting, there has also been a huge impact on our health, or we don't really know yet about that.
Oh my gosh, I have a bone to pick with LEDs. I can't stand LEDs. It's a necessary evil right now, and I think there is also a wonderful opportunity to create something different. But I will say this, and I don't know if your audience knows, but if you have, take your smartphone and you put it in the slow-mo video setting, what I tend to do when I go into spaces that have only LED light is most LEDs cannot dim the way incandescents dim. And so what they do is they flicker off and on, off and on imperceptibly. But what happens if you use your phone on slow-mo and you record it for a few, seconds, 30 seconds, and if it starts flickering on your phone, that is actually a toxic recipe for headaches, migraines, and epileptic seizures. I mean, we don't realize that just as much as there's junk sound and junk smell, there's junk light, and we are being we're being bombarded by that strobe. And even though our eyes may not see it, our body feels it. So it's like it's dissonance. So what I recommend in terms of that is really limit, your dimmer. Don't try to use the dimmer, but instead use a light that is like a less lumens. So just a dimmer light versus trying to dim an already bright light for number one. Okay, number two, like I said, use as much natural candle firelight as you can. And number three, lampshades. Lampshades create that warmth. If you're talking about something that's cold, I did a workshop at Mount Sinai Hospital, and it was a wonderful five senses workshop. And I literally took a lamp over with all my scarves that I wear, and I was draping. It has to be, of course, LED. It's cool. So just make sure. And I was just showing the idea of draping a color over a lampshade, because most people don't realize that is a really wonderful way to change out, not just on a seasonal level, but however which way you want to create that mood, to do a darker shade, do a red shade, do something that has beautiful royal purple, and watch your mood change. So not the light, not those gimmicky lights that change, but to change the material, use those materials. And that's the other part of what I recommend is really auditing your space. I have lists for that, to audit your space, because that's what I did, especially when I was going through cancer. I had the time. I was looking around and I'm like, oh my God, I have to change this. And so I started implementing everything that I teach on myself when I was going through that.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that, ask you about that time in your life when you got sick, and how many people have cancer those days. Some people recover from it, some people don't. But how did this shifted your relationship to spaces as healing spaces, which is what you're really working? Were you completely disconnected from that before? Was it something that really your illness, which often illness, they are here to teach us something really big, right? And did you feel it was part of your journey somehow in order to really dive deep inside about needs and about beauty and about your medicine, whatever was going to come out for this world, right? How you been looking at that now that you look back to it?
Oh my goodness. It has been I called my cancer my doorway to freedom, because I didn't realize that I was trapped in purgatory. And it really opened my eyes to a way of being where paradise is experienced right now. I'm not waiting to have that beautiful moment. I mean, cancer definitely made me realize I couldn't count on, the trajectory of my plan for my life to turn out. Because I think one of the things I also want to express here is we have really vilified death. We are, there's a battle against cancer. There's a battle, of war on drugs. Like there's always this strange, violent terminology. And, the drama triangle of cancer being the villain and the doctor is the hero on the white steed, and you're, as a cancer patient, is the victim. I divested myself of that rhetoric, Angel. I didn't think cancer was the villain. I actually thought cancer was my teacher. And that's where I wrote in my book, cancer was my Hades, my divine lover. This was a dance, a tango with Hades. So what I learned from that tango is what I'm bringing to the fore now. And those dance steps are all about following a deeper wisdom within you, which we all have. We all have it. and how to access that in ways in which your light and your darkness, your upper world and your underworld, your seasons, all the seasons, using the plant analogy, when we gestate an idea, when we birth that idea, when, even relationships, when they decay and we end them, all cycles of our being matter and count. And so death to me was never something that I was fighting, because, we're all going to die. So most of modern society is trying to biohack their way out of death.
Mm.
And I think I'm the opposite. I embrace whole death with reverence, and it is a partner in all the designs that I create.
Mm. How is that? How does this shifted your design? I'm really interested. It's very, very interesting also what you share about the cycle, because that's very part of, the core foundation of ancient cosmologies,
Yeah.
ancient wisdom, right? Things rise, they are born, they rise, they get to a peak, and then they decay, and then they die. But we're in
Yeah.
a society that sees times as linear, and it's a straight line. It's not a circle, and that's part of the disconnection from nature. It's not just the
Mm.
natural world; it's the natural cycle. It's the natural, experience of being human. All of it, right?
Right, right. I call the Holy Trinity the Maiden, Mother, and Crone. And I grew up in Pakistan with 4 generations under one roof. I learned to braid on my great grandmother's hair. So I learned ancient traditions on how to dye using onion skins and hibiscus and different things, how to weave, how to sew, how to make clothing, how to unravel a sweater and re-knit a sweater. Nothing was wasted. So, my mom would take her clothes and turn them into our clothes. So I saw those cycles, right? And people call it, the modern version is recycling. It's so cool. But like that's recycling is just an ancient tradition, packaged in a modern way. So I think it's really important to recognize that in modern society, aging and the crone has been rendered invisible. We're in an anti-aging world, which is absolutely impossible to keep up. So embracing the death within you and those cycles, autophagy and apoptosis when you're sleeping. We are regenerating our cells, Angel. We are regenerating our organs. We're regenerating ourselves from the inside out all the time. We're going through these cycles, whether we recognize it or not. And in terms of even relationships, all of those seasons are important seasons. Winter of the self, that's an important time to not constantly be performing, but to rest. That's what Cancer taught me big time, because I wrote this in my book, the false ideal of the Wonder Woman syndrome. Like the modern woman feels like she has to do all and be all, and that's an impossible thing. So to be able to listen to the ancient wisdom of our elders, knowing when to rest, having that reverence for that wisdom, for those wrinkles, for those rolls, for those jiggles, being a woman in that way and embracing the beauty that is not cosmetic, that is eternal. Divine alignment is true beauty.
That feels revolutionary to me, those kind of statements and speech. It's very needed, I think, in the world today. How do you feel that the world has been, for the decades you've been doing design, how do you feel it's evolving into being more open to such wisdom? I mean, this is very, unusual, unorthodox, let's say, right? The way you design spaces, the way you look at beauty and health and the internal cycles of the body and how that is impacted by the space you are living in. Do you feel there is more opening to it now, as this world is getting more and more divided and it feels like two extremes are being born at the same time? But do you feel like people are starting to realize that there is a necessity to return to those ancient wisdom in every aspect of our life? And you're a beautiful example, now to do that on something unexpected, I would say. People don't think ancient wisdom and probably interior design at the same time, right? So do you feel there is a shift, there is an evolution in even in the type of clients, I guess, that you're getting now?
Yeah, there's a thirst, Angel. There's a thirst for our roots. You
Mm,
know, I think so much of this ideal of improvement means that we throw the baby out with the bathwater, that we suddenly reject those older ways and consider them, just not as smart. And I think redefining what intelligence is for you and what is wise for you, because a lot of times people use our best intentions against us. Okay. I'll give you an example. Whenever I see an advertisement for something that is convenient or it's stain resistant, you can put it in your washing machine. You can do this, you can do that. And I'm like, what are they selling you? A polypropylene toxic, something that's going to emit VOCs for the rest of your life. You don't even realize you're inhaling the dust nanoparticles of that plastic in your body, into your body, right? On a cellular level. And yet, hi, we have used linen for 36,000 years. We have used wool. We have used leather. We have used cotton. And that's non-toxic. And guess what? It's also cleanable. You can put it in your washing machine. But like it's marketed as if it's like so like
mm,
uh hard to keep up. Silk. Silk is beautiful. All of these natural fibers are, I think there's a thirst for getting back to um, those ancient ways. Definitely, I definitely think so. But, growing up the way I did for my generation is very unusual. And I realize what I did naturally for, my youth suddenly is like trendy.
yeah, the old is becoming, the new black. Um, So where is this evolving? Where do you see yourself? We talk about what you're doing now, and where is that space evolving? And I'm guessing, you have, you're a creative person, so you probably have desire, but where do you see this calling? It's not really a job that you're doing. It's really something that's really calling you. Where is that evolving, and how is that in reflection and response? I always like to open the talk towards what's happening in the world, what's happening in the collective. We're in difficult time, environmental, societal, political, in so many levels. And so many people are not privileged, right? Most people live in very difficult life today. So how do we evolve those practices to also tend to the collective? And is this something you're looking at? Is this something you're pondering about?
Yes, I can talk to you forever about this subject. I I definitely think that so let me just step back for a second. After I published my book, I began leading workshops with cancer survivors to basically teach them the ways in which I use design to help them create that healing oasis and to bring that beauty in, especially to those suffering from any illness. I feel like that's when you need beauty the most. Most people feel like, oh, I'll feel beautiful when I'm better, or I'll feel good when this is over. And I'm like, no, you need this now. This is, counterintuitive. So I'm driven, Angel, to teach and to share my message. And I designed courses. It's called Claim Your Paradise because paradise is about you today, right now. And yes, I've had the privilege to work with, very high-end clientele with big budgets. But what I really love is teaching accessible, implementing ways today that anyone can take. You don't need a big budget for. As a matter of fact, a lot of these things are around you. You don't even realize that you can create that healing oasis for yourself today.
Mm, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much. Before we close, if people had to remember one thing of everything you shared today, or maybe something you haven't shared yet, what would be your closing? And you can take as much time as you want, but what is one thing what do you want people to really maybe reflect on or think about, connect to?
Your beauty is in your shadow. Embrace the darkness within you. Embrace the unknown and dive deep into your depths. Become a mermaid, and you'll realize that you could breathe underwater all along.
I love this. Thank you, Mahwish. So for people, that want to know more about this beautiful work that Mahwish is doing, you can check our website and all the links below this podcast or this video. Also reminding you of her book, Purgatory to Paradise, which is about her triumphing over her cancer, but more about the journey and how design really helped create a healing sanctuary, which was a huge part of her healing path. And there is more to say about you, Mahwish. I'm sure we can talk again. In fact, I have some ideas of talk maybe we could bring in the future. So I want to thank you very much for coming on our podcast today, and thank everyone that were listening. And please check Mahwish work, because I think it's really special, and I'm really glad that we talked today.
Thank you so much for having me. Lovely speaking with you too.
Yeah, thank you.